and welcome back to Sullivan's Unheard Voices. I'm here with Daphne. Daphne, thank you so much for being here. I say being here with me today, I'm technically with you in your podcast studio, which is very refreshing, by the way. I love your setup.
Thank you. It's a mess. It's a mess. There's so many wires, and people look at it and they go, I've got to work on wire control, people
so
see
hard,
it, and
though.
it's a mess. It's a mess, and people go, you know where all those go? And I go, yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
Well, and it's one of those things where, because I hear that all the time, too, because, I have a to-go podcast booth that I take with me, and my wires are always messed up. And it's just because,
wires in my head are messed up.
That's fair. That's really fair. But I wanted to have you on the podcast today to talk about what you've got going on, because I think it's something special. And I think with your Transplanting podcast and what you're doing, more people need to know about it, because it's one of those things where a lot of the conversation about trans community is not from the perspective of trans people.
It's not. A lot of what you're hearing nowadays is coming from the politicians and the news, and it's whatever they want to say. So whether they're coming in and demonizing and dehumanizing the trans community, I mean, that's one of the major message, probably the most heard message anyway that we're hearing going around right now. I believe it's North Carolina right now. All the Republican politicians are basing trans rights as the base of their campaign. So it's becoming a bigger and bigger message about attacking the trans community, and a lot of the community is being attacked. So we started this podcast, me and my co-host, to provide insight into the trans community. We focus on listening to trans people, letting them tell their stories, giving them a platform for that. So we're taking away the myths around trans people, and we're humanizing them. And then we're also bringing in allies and I'm blanking right now. Allies and parents to talk about how to support the community, how to support your kids, why to support the community, and then we're bringing around experts in all of their different fields to talk about whatever their expertise is. So we have medical professionals, legal professionals, all these different areas to come talk about how they work with trans people. And we had the nation's leading medical researcher on gender identity, on internal medicine, come in and talk about how sex is determined on a biological scale. And so it was because sex isn't just male and female. Sex is a spectrum on its own. And, they broke it down, they brought out charts, and it explained the entire process. And it was a really fascinating couple episodes, actually, right? We're bringing in politicians to talk about how to make change and what does that look like. I'm bringing in a sex therapist to come talk about ways that people can have sex in an affirming way, right? Because this is a topic that people don't talk about, but a lot of trans people are uncomfortable with. And so we're educating people outside the community, but also in the community. A lot of people go through the transition and they're not comfortable with their body, or they're starting the transition, they're not comfortable with parts. Nobody likes talking about the parts in the way that other people used to talk about them, because that's not affirming. And so we're bringing in someone to say, hey, here's ways you can do it in an affirming way that satisfies everybody. So it's all the areas.
Which I think is an important conversation, because sex education just in of itself is terrible in schools to begin with.
It is.
And it's one of those interesting societal things where we're not allowed to talk about it, but yet it's something you're supposed to incorporate and just kind of feel your way through it.
Yeah.
But that complicates things so much, regardless of your gender or regardless of your situation. And so the idea that we can't talk about that openly is kind of absurd. And so I really appreciate that perspective, because we should be talking about that.
It should be normalized to be able to have these conversations, because this makes, and this isn't just for trans people, this is for all people.
Everybody, yeah.
Yeah, you should be able to talk about this openly and discuss it in a way that's not shameful. And you should be, because, your body's a beautiful thing. Being able to work with it in all of the ways is a beautiful thing. But on top of that, it's also, it's more than just talking about your body. It's talking about your relationships. What are ways that you can work better in your relationships? How can you help each other in other ways? Like it's a meaningful conversation that needs to be held around. It just helps everybody. It helps people be safer and more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a conversation needed for everybody. I was listening to a podcast called Shameless Sex, and it's these two ladies. One of them, I believe, writes articles about, or no, she reviews sex toys, and then the other one owns a sex store, or sex toy store. We'll say that, right?
Yeah.
And adult store. And so these two ladies got together and they started the podcast Shameless Sex, and they just go into all the topics, and there's just no shame. They take it, they destigmatize everything, and they just go, hey, we're just going to have a conversation. And one of the episodes in there, they do talk about how to have affirming sex. And so that's where the idea came from. And so I'm talking to anybody and everybody.
I appreciate that so much, because another thing, too, that I think a lot of people don't understand, because this is some of the rhetoric that I hear that's out there, is that trans rights are different or unique. Like, no, that's not true. Trans rights are human rights. Like, can we start there? Like, can we start with just everybody is human and just be able to be whomever the hell they want to be?
Yeah, I mean, all of these are just characteristics of people.
Yeah.
Right? And it doesn't matter if you're trans or not. All of these are just characteristics of people. And so we're talking about just other people. It's not trans people. It's not, it's still men, women. It doesn't matter if you're a trans woman or woman. Like, it's just woman, right? It's just female. It's just male. It's just everywhere in between. And wherever it is you fall on the spectrum. But I mean, it's the same for everybody, whether you're in the community or not, right? You're just a person. And so why don't we just come talk about this, and let's just humanize the trans community?
Because, like, and one of the things that I'm afraid of, right? Because, like you were talking about in the beginning, the platform of the political right, having that as an issue to begin with, I think that takes away from what's really needed in the conversation, right? Yeah. Can we talk about poverty in America instead of being in people's businesses about their human rights, right? Can we talk about capitalism in this form that it is and how it's oppressing people? Like, can we talk about the things that are sort of we need to work on collectively, as opposed to these tiny little snippets of things that shouldn't even be an issue to begin with? Yeah. Like, I don't understand why it's a campaign issue to begin with.
Why are we talking about whether people are people, and why aren't we talking about how do we fix the problems in America?
And when we help people succeed, regardless, we help people in general. It's one of the things, like with my disability advocacy, that I argue at length, right?
I've seen that.
Yeah, just changing something that helps somebody with a disability actually helps everybody.
Yes.
And so if we can figure out a way to flip the script and having conversations about what's really going on and how we can help people lead better lives, I think we can actually get something accomplished.
Yeah.
But right now it's just it's all this fighting over nonsense.
Well, and a lot of people think that, each person is each individual person, but people work together to become a community, right? People think of your body as it's my body, right? But it's not your body. It's a bunch of cells working together. It's literally a bunch of microclimates that are working together to create yourself. Yeah. And then when it comes to ourselves, we're working together to create a community. So helping one person affects the whole community. And so if we can just turn around and help people, we're helping the country.
And one of the things that I love and appreciate about your podcast is when you talk about the affirming and support, especially from the parents' perspective.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring it up is because one of my best friends who passed a couple years ago did not get the support from her parents the minute she came out.
Yeah.
And it was devastating to her. And it just was like crippling to me as even her friend. And like, I just want people to know, like, if your kid comes out to you as trans or gay or whatever, just support them. it's the bare minimum you can do, and I don't understand parents that don't.
I understand that on a pretty deep scale because my family walked away when I came out, right? And everybody walked away. I have very limited contact with any people in my family. So I understand that. I found that a lot of the resistance toward the community is based in religion, right? And I understand that people have their beliefs and that's fine, but at the end of the day, all the religions that I know of are supposed to be based on love. And so when you turn around, put love first, and then you can worry about your rules or whatever later. But let's focus on love first. And when you do that, so there's no reason that parents can't be there, accepting their kids, supporting their kids as they go through these things, because love should be the first thing. There's no rules attached to that, just love.
And it's so much easier in your life if you love your child.
Yeah.
Because I would imagine the heartbreak from having to, because of a religion or whatever reason, to let your just let your child go,
have them walk away,
like,
or worse, right? Because there has been over here we have the St. John's Bridge, not far from where we're at right now. If you go walk up on the bridge, there's two names up there right now. There's Charlotte Fosgate and Lilia Holland, right? Charlotte Fosgate's family was affirming and everything, for whatever reason they have, went off the bridge. And that just is what it is. Lilia Holland is a newer name that popped up in the last month and a half. They came from Texas. It took me forever. I finally found their Twitter profile, and they came from Texas trying to escape persecution. They got here, they're 19, and they were here for a month and a half, and then that was all they could do. Having affirming families is such an important thing because it's so much more than just keeping your family together. It's keeping lives together.
And it's so important for just the humanity of it.
Yeah.
And it is one of the things that I just strive for is just generalized kindness and acceptance. Yeah. And when I hear people push back against that, it's one of the things that my autistic brain can't comprehend.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I don't understand the reasons behind it. I don't understand the logic behind it. And that gets me into trouble so many times.
People fear things that are different. When people say things that are different, it's not like us, it's different, it's out there, it's out of our comfort zone, and that scares people. They don't like being out of their comfort zone. And so a lot of the hate that's ever existed is because they're different. Whether it's been racism that's happened with slavery, whether it's been women being discriminated against, whether it's been the LGBTQ community, whether it's been the Latinx community, whatever it is, or even the Asian community, building the railroads and whatnot in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, and the Japanese internment camps.
Yes, it's all it's or Hitler with the Jews, right? It has always been the things that are different has been what makes people uncomfortable. This is where hate comes from.
I guess I just don't understand hate in general, right?
Right.
But then again, I'm weird, and I don't know if weird's the right word, but I don't experience anger as an emotion.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. When I was a kid, I used to be just really angry. Mm-hmm. I used to, and I didn't show it really, but inside it was there, and it would just boil and boil, and you could just you felt like you were just going to break all the time, and it would just, you felt like you were going to explode, And then there was a couple of things that I did change in my life, whatever, that really helped that out. One of them was I started swearing. So I did, and for the first little while, I swore like a sailor, and maybe I still do that a little bit. But having the ability to be free in your expression is one of the things that I did to be able to release some of that anger that's inside. And it doesn't matter if it was by swearing or by dressing different. Having free that expression took a lot of that anger out of me. And so I think maybe some of this anger is also coming from people having their own feelings that they're running away from.
I really appreciate that. So as you were growing up, do you remember when you first sort of realized that you weren't in the body that you were supposed to be?
Yes.
Do you
I could go all the way back to being, I don't know, 5. They had the old J.C. Penney catalogs, and it would show up and we would go through marking stuff for Christmas. I want the XJ545 robot dinosaur or whatever, and you write down every little detail for your parents so they can make sure to find just the one, and not that anything ever showed up, but, you'd be going through it, and then you get to like the bra section, and they would be like, don't ever go through that. That's the naughty section. But you know what? I did. But, a lot of boys would ever see the naughty section and they're looking at something totally different. When I saw it, it was, ooh, that feels normal to me. When I saw that. Fast forward, I think 8 years old is when the Twister movie came out. Helen Hunt played as Jo, the main character there. And she was gorgeous and she was a great actor. But then on top of it, I saw her and I can still remember the feeling and thought coming through me of I want to be her. Fast forward to turning 13, somewhere in there, Pirates of the Caribbean came out, Keira Knightley, anyway, they wore the corset, right? And as they started tightening it up, she passes out and falls off the thing, right? And all the ladies in the class, all the women were sitting here going, oh my gosh. And I'm like, what do you mean? What's going on? And they go, oh, it's a corset. And I go, I don't know what that means. And they go, well, it's this, the thing that they just tightened up, that's the corset. And I go, I don't know what that is, but I need it in my life.
Yeah.
So now I got like 20 of them.
I love it.
Yeah, so that's like the early stuff that I can remember. I remember feeling like a freak because, again, it's different, and it was a shameful thing. It's different than what you're taught growing up. In 7th grade, for Pride Week, not Pride Week, but homecoming weeks, right? You had all the days you would dress up for the different events, whatever. And one of the days they picked was cross-dressing day for some reason, right? And so I got to put on my sister's dress, and you did your makeup, and you show up at school, and you feel a little weird, but every other guy's doing it too. But whenever that happened, I connected with it so deeply. And I go, oh, something's happening here. And that's when I first remember going, hey, there's something going on and I don't know what it is.
And do you think you would have been accepted by the community if you were to...
No.
Yeah.
No way. I grew up in a very Orthodox Mormon community. It would not have been. It would not.
Yeah.
I didn't really do a lot in the way of cross-dressing during that time. It didn't really happen. I know, like, when Halloween time would come around, everybody would start to bring out the costumes. And I would always make it as a joke, whatever, go grab the witch costume, throw it on, and all the girls in the family would all start laughing. Oh, look at you, and they thought it was funny, but, I had other reasons behind it. But, anything I did was you play it off as a joke because you don't really want people to know.
Because the consequences are pretty extreme.
Yeah.
Like I don't think people realize the danger sometimes when you have closed-minded kids who are allowed to be closed-minded and allowed to sort of have that sort of position.
We had a kid in school that everybody had determined was gay. And they treated this person just wildly different than the other people. This person was suffering from depression. It was very easy to see it, And at some point, I think they left that school and went to a different school because it just gotten so bad, right? I actually reached out to their parent, who used to be one of my teachers in school. I reached out to them when I started the transition, and I was having a conversation. I said, hey, how's your kid? Because they're in the community, right? And he goes, no, they're straight. They have a wife and kids, and there was such a stigma that was forced on somebody else in a community that it wasn't accurate.
Yeah,
but it put them in this really bad state. So yeah, there wasn't a place for anything like that to exist.
And I remember distinctly, and it was one of those moments that sort of shifted my thinking culturally.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't thinking about it until I was in high school.
Yeah.
And somebody wrote an anonymous newsletter or anonymous article to the school newspaper about how they had to hide the fact that they were gay and that they had all of these concerns and fears, and they would love to be in a place that would accept them if they could be out in the open. Well, then somehow or another, somebody on the paper let loose, if you will, the name of that person.
Oh, no.
And not only did they have to leave school that next week, like they had to pack up and leave the city.
Oh.
And I remember
Was it a smaller
distinctly,
town?
yeah, really
Okay.
tiny town, like predominantly white, religious, Snohomish, Washington. And so I'll never forget, like, because I'm an empath even back then, like how horrible that must have been.
Yeah.
And that it was left an impression to me that I knew at that moment in time that I would never do that to someone else.
Yeah.
Because it was like, I didn't understand. Again, back to
saw
that
their
whole
life
understand.
uprooted.
Yeah, for no reason other than telling the truth, and that got me so bad that it just carried on for the rest of my life.
But I think that speaks a lot that you were just so open-minded like that, because a lot of people see it and they go, oh, good, the problem is gone. And so for you to see it and go, hey, look, there's compassion here because things change. That changes a lot, and I think it speaks highly of you and who you are. And it continues echoed because you have the podcast where you're still opening up and letting people be there.
And I think it stems from back when I was young. My dad looks very much Native American. I look very much like my mom. And I remember a couple of times where police accused him of kidnapping me because of me being white. And so like I remember like that shouldn't be okay. And then to see that, it's like that shouldn't be okay either.
Yeah.
And so, like, as you sort of went through and you started, like, when did you decide to start the transition process?
Oh, well, there was a time around that I was 20, and some really bad things ended up happening, and it made me push everything down really hard and lock it in a box and bury it 3 feet, 6 feet deep. I didn't want it ever coming out. I got married, and we were together for 11 years. Near the end of that, though, it was clear that we were going in different directions, and I figured if we were going to separate, I might as well get what I want out of this. And they were supportive of me transitioning, and they kind of helped me through that. And we even had an agreement that we weren't going to separate until I could, air quotes, pass, right? Because I didn't want to come out, and the internalized fear was, again, being a freak, right?
Yeah.
And so I did not want to come out unless I could get away with it, because I didn't want to deal with that.
And how much of a difference did that make, having that sort of supportive environment through the transition?
It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard. It would have been harder on my own. And once the separation did happen, I was very much on my own. So having to go through the beginning awkward phases, where your chest is just starting to grow, hormones are just starting to kick in, your hair's just starting to grow, and everything's just really awkward at that point, that would have been much harder to continue with the transition. Having all the external, whatever it is you want to call it, all the I can't think of the word.
That
right
external
now.
dialogue, if you will.
No, just more pressure, right?
Okay,
External
yeah.
pressure from peers and coworkers and whatever, right? Having that be around you, it would have been much harder to continue the transition without having one person that stayed with you till you could get away with it.
And how long does that transition usually take?
It depends on what part of a transition it is, right? Because a transition is just a generic term. It's different for everybody.
I really appreciate that, because I think that's not something that's widely discussed.
Yeah. We had a podcast episode today where the person, trans man, and they were talking about that, and they made a comment. They hadn't had hormones. They hadn't taken or had any surgeries, but they were still mask presenting and they were still doing their thing. They're still a trans man, but them not having hormones, them not having the surgery doesn't make them any less of a man. That's just part of who they are, and it's there is no set schedule or path, right, where you have to go A to Z trying to go through the path of transitioning. It's different for everybody. So for someone like me, bottom surgery works well, hormones work well, top surgery I didn't need. They came in on their own. So I didn't need that, right? Some people, facial feminization surgery, some people get vocal surgeries. It's different for everybody, and not everybody will do hormones, and so it just depends some people have no changes. They're just happy, but they also recognize that they have a masculine side, and they're happy being that. And so it just depends. Transition's not a one-stop shop. It's different for everybody.
Yeah, the destination is whatever is most comfortable for you as a human.
What feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that perspective. Because, I guess a lot of the conversation is about one form of transition, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, they think we're going in for kids and doing genital mutilation, right? That's the words that everyone is using, right? They're not taking kids into all the doctors and chopping things off. They're not bringing kids to school in the morning. The teacher goes, chops their dick off and sends them back home. This shit's not happening. So it's highly stigmatized. There's not one... It doesn't work the same for everybody, and it's most important that everybody do their path. And again, this goes back to it. This is the same for everybody. Cis people have to figure out who they are. Are they a musician? Are they a sports player? Are they a writer? Do they dress femme? Do they dress more butch? Do they spike their hair, or do they grow it long or go bald? It doesn't matter. Everybody is looking for that thing that makes them feel good. And makes them feel in tune with their body. And so this isn't an inherent trans thing. This is a human thing. People are just picking out on the trans people because they've been dehumanized and targeted.
And it's an easy target that you can use to spread more fear-mongering.
It's different.
Yeah. And sorry, I'm just...
We're back to the difference.
Yeah. And ugly people make me go, ugh. You know? And I'm talking about ugly on the inside. Just want to make sure that's out there, because one of the things that I find interesting about this conversation, especially in the media and the mass narrative, is you only have 5 seconds to talk about it. And so how do you talk about these issues for 5 seconds and then make up an opinion? And so people don't listen to a podcast. People don't talk to people who are part of the trans community before they formalize these lifelong opinions about people.
So I am working as a media manager for a political campaign right now. When you are trying to deliver a media message, you have to hook them. People have an it's because of the digital age, people have a much shorter attention span. So you have 3 to 5 seconds to hook somebody. You have to put something out there that really catches them in order for them to listen for the rest of it. And so if we're going to have 5-second conversations around trans people, it can't be "you're wrong." It has to be, hey, we have we have this in common. Let's talk about how to about this. Maybe it's, have you met Ted? Whatever. You have to find some way to grab their attention, and once you grab the attention, then you can have that conversation.
And do you feel like it will ever be at a point where we can have these conversations openly?
Yeah, I think that's the progression of civilization. Example, it's the younger people that are more progressive than the older generation. The older generations are always complaining, "Oh, these kids are wild. They're unruly. They're 1950s, everybody, or 40s, whatever, everyone's listening to Elvis, and that was wild, considered wild at the time. Fast forward, we're getting into the 70s music, and we got the hippie movement, and they're growing their hair out. Oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this. Fast forward into 90s, we're getting more into rock. And oh my God, I can't believe and then we start getting into more heavy stuff, and the stuff that you thought was really heavy back in the 90s, you go listen to it now and you're like, oh, that is not at all, And so as you look, the younger generations are what is progressing, right? And so we can find the same thing. The younger people are changing clothing designs. The younger people are pushing movements, right? And so kids seeing that black people were being treated differently is what allowed them to start seeing, hey, these are people and they shouldn't be treated differently, because kids have an open heart and they understand that it's okay for people to be different. And so that starts to change. And then they still have their upbringing that has its values that have been placed on them. And over time, and so that continues through that generation. Well, then the next one comes up and says, oh, I like that, but also this is wrong. And so then they start changing that. And so, yeah, I think in the future, the children that are here now see that what's going on. We know that teenage, the teen and youth, whatever, right now tend to have higher numbers of showing that they are in the LGBTQ community than adults do. But adults have been growing up in a society where it wasn't okay. You weren't allowed to do this. Nobody talked about this stuff. There wasn't resources. But now that stuff's starting to happen, now people are feeling more comfortable coming out. So yeah, as the younger generations come up, I do believe that it will become an okay thing to be trans. I believe it'll be okay to have these conversations. I think it'll be a normal thing for people to just be people.
I really look forward to that day. I really do.
Me too.
I hope it happens in our lifetime.
I think it will.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Hey, one of the things too that I'm curious about is because as you see like the political campaigns and sort of like the politics piece of it, one of the things I appreciate about Oregon in particular is just how they've structured it as to affirm people who are trying to get gender affirming care. At the same time, I recognize there's a significant limitation on access.
And there's more needs that need to be met with it.
Yeah.
So Oregon passed it into law that any insurance provider has to provide gender affirming care, right? That's just a thing. Well, what happens as Medicaid has gender affirming care cut out of it? How does that start breaking down into the states? And this is the conversation we were having the last time we were together, right? That's something that's happening right now. California just turned down a bill allowing people to stockpile hormones because they said there's no way for the doctors to keep up on what's happening, and people are self-dosing and that kind of thing, right? Washington already has a law about that. This has been going on, I think, for a year or two now, and there's no reports that this is being misused like that. But in the political climate that we're having today, this is something people are worried about, and they're they need to have that. So some things Oregon can do is, let's start allowing people to have the care that they really need. Let's help them not be so worried about that. And let's make Oregon a sanctuary state for LGBTQ people, because we are not.
And I'm kind of surprised we're not yet,
Yeah, California is. And California, Oregon, Washington, and I think there's a few others started putting together to have their own interstate insurance, if I remember right, or Medicaid kind of No, I'm wrong. It's the HHS program, whatever.
Yeah.
So that way they can not have to do the national program. That's what it is that I'm thinking of.
How cool would that be?
I mean, it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is, I did not know that was happening.
Yeah, well, so the CDC, right? They're having a major purge of information, and this is going through all the major medical associations are starting to be discredited by the president. He's WPATH, the world. Not WPATH. Yeah, WPATH is the world something about trans health, right? Mm-hmm. They I can't believe I can't think of the name. Anyway, all these organizations that are putting together guidelines on what's happening with trans people and why things are happening, that it's okay to treat trans people, they're all being discredited. And then through all the national organizations, information is being purged about the LGBTQ community, but specifically trans people. And so these 3 states for sure, I think there was a couple more that have started to join in. They're creating their own interstate CDC, essentially, where they're restoring all of this information so that it's not lost.
And that's so needed.
Yeah.
Because like one of the things that I encountered recently is I was on a project where I was researching health disparities for the trans community, and the federal government used to track a lot of information. But then when the Trump administration took over, they stopped collecting that information.
Are you talking about like with the ICE and that kind of information where they've stopped showing that information?
No, this is actually like the Department of Health used to track like care rates and death rates and like medical, all of these like subset of categories, like access to healthcare, a percentage of people that have complications due to this, and like all of this information. And you could track it all the way through the CDC and their reporting requirements until the Trump administration took over. And so when I went to do research for this side project that I was working on, to my surprise, that information was not collected.
Right. And that's why these other states are putting something together is because of that issue.
So it's like you're putting it in a place where, and I'm glad they're doing that, but it's like if you don't recognize or keep track of the health disparities, how can you do anything to help? And they're just ignoring it now.
And there's more people. Again, we're coming back to the same theme. It is not just about trans people. This is about everybody, right? And so working with trans people is affecting teen suicide, right? Where if you work with them, the rates drop. This is affecting everybody. It's hormone levels, right? We're learning more information about hormone levels as we... a lot of the breaking edge science is coming around trans people, working with doctors can work with trans people in specifically, I'm trying to think of like surgeries and things like that have been made possible through trans people and have been afterwards added for other people. People having bottom surgery wasn't a thing until 1930s Germany or something like that, right? Is when maybe it wasn't even 19s, it might have been 18s, I don't remember. But that's when that started. But there have been women that didn't have all the parts or didn't have the right parts, according to what the medicine said at the time. But because these surgeries have started to happen, now they can be used with other people. And so it helps everybody when you work with it. Medicine, learning about hormone levels isn't just about trans people. It affects other people, whether... and
I have an example of that.
Okay.
So the hormone therapy piece, right? Led to a lot of the national athletes to do hormone level checks to make sure that they are peak optimal performance, because part of it is making sure that your hormone levels are off. But it wasn't until the hormone research through the transgender community that it was a priority. Like, oh, wait a minute. These are all across all specters, all human beings. And hormone imbalance, it causes all kinds of medical issues. And so many people's lives have changed in a positive way, and we have so much better sports because of that.
Well, like what was it, 1986? I think was when the Olympic Committee they were doing the research. They were testing hormone levels and things like that, and all of a sudden they started realizing that all of these athletes didn't have the same hormone levels, and they were all these different levels, and it created the change where they go, hey, we're not going to be testing all the hormone levels after this because we've learned this, and now we're back to reinstating that. But learning about trans people affects everybody. The medical researcher on internal medicine, right? She is out there going to Harvard and I can't think of the other schools, but she's going there and putting on these I want to say dissertations, but I don't think that's the right word. But she's getting up there and giving a speech, to the doctors and explaining to them about how the biology of sex is determined, and she's quite literally changing the way people learn about sex. And so, but that happened because they are intersex, and she wanted to know more about hers. She's got like Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or whatever that one is, right? She has whatever whatever condition she has. But that caused her to want to learn more about it. She started going into that. She went down the rabbit hole of how is sex determined, because that comes in with the genes and all these different things, right?
Yeah.
And as she went through it, she goes, hey, look at this. I've been reading all these, I don't know, she listed like 30 textbooks worth, and she goes, look, she says, I've been reading through all of these, and she started putting all the pieces together, and she goes, hey, look, it's actually a spectrum here, but that affects everybody. That's not just something specific to the trans community.
And I love it when people have the receipts when they have the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because so many people have developed this opinion based on a 5-second combo in the media.
Oh, it's a pseudoscience.
Yeah, no,
Deep fake.
Do your own research. Pick up a book.
And more than a 30-second meme search.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Everyone thinks memes are the greatest thing out there.
And don't believe Google. Don't believe Google.
ChatGPT is where it's at.
Yeah, right? And so I can't stress enough, just consider the source, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the things also when I did that research was understanding and recognizing how difficult it is to find accurate information.
Yeah.
There's so many groups and organizations out there that look like news organizations, and then you start reading their information and this, oh, wait a minute, there's a bent here. They're not painting the whole picture. They're just doing a narrative. And so people kind of have to be kind of proactive in a way to make sure that the source you're getting your information is not only reputable but has accurate information.
Yeah, I found a picture the other day where they showed a lot of the major news sources, and they listed on a graph whether it's far left leaning to far right leaning, right, and everywhere in between. But then they also had it from not accurate at all to opinion to fact to most accurate, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so they drew this graph, and when you got to the far left, it was down in the not accurate and opinion side of things. As it got more moderate, whatever, you see it spike up at it's very accurate, and you find CNN was up at the top of there. I believe one of the Fox channels specifically was up there. It was interesting, right? And then as you keep going farther right, you start seeing more Fox outlets there. But as you keep going, it starts to drop down again from being accurate at the farther left you go. And so you find down below accurate and below opinion almost even. Ben Shapiro's network was there, and so it's interesting that when you start getting to the extremes that it's not accurate. I ended up seeing that at the bottom of this page, though, picture, there's like a little symbol of the ad something agency. So I go looking for it, and I found the agency, and I start reading, because how do I know that this graph is real or not? Somebody could have just made a graph to, highlight their thing, So I went through it. No, this is an independent company. They are not paid for by any of these major corporations, and they just sit here and they have a team of people that all they do is just rate thousands and hundreds of thousands of articles, and they go read the article and then they fact check everything, and they just see how accurate all of these news sources is, and that's how they came up with this graph. Fascinating story, though, is as I was reading through this, I get down to the bottom of the page, and there's this little LGBT icon that I've never seen before. Turns out that there is a national LGBT Chamber of Commerce. I didn't know this, and so I went looking into it. You can become a member of it, and there's events that you can go to with them, and you can really get your name out. You can network. There's a whole lot of opportunity being a part of this Chamber of Commerce. Well, to become a member, it's like $1,700 or $1,400 a year. It's some stupid number, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, I can't pay anything like that, so I don't know what I would do. Or they will waive the fee if you are with your local Chamber of Commerce. And I'm like, well, how do I find Portland's Chamber of Commerce, Well, it turns out it's not Portland's, because they have a list of affiliated Chamber of Commerces. Well, you go open it, and every state has its own LGBT Chamber of Commerce. So there is an Oregon LGBT Chamber of Commerce. And, they'll waive the fee for the national one if you're a member of this one. Well, this one's like $25 a year, $20 a year, Well,
Yeah.
that's nothing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can go do that, and simple things like fact checking. Not only do they affect the information that you're getting and making sure you're getting accurate information, but the more you go, the more you find other resources that you didn't know, and it leads you into other paths that you didn't know, and it really grows your knowledge of everything else.
And I want to have I want to circle back to something though, because
Yeah.
it's something I've always been curious about, and it's something I sort of struggle with even today. Like when you encounter those highly negative, closed-minded people, like how do you not let that get under your skin?
It's hard.
Because it bothers the crap out of me.
It bothers me.
And-
It bothers me. Honestly, honest to God, it wears me out.
Yeah.
It wears me out because I can't run I feel anyway, I can't run a reputable podcast about trans people if I'm not up to date on what's happening in the trans community. And so I am researching the hell out of all of it on a daily basis. And emotionally, it trashes me. Like I'm wore out, especially by the end of the week. I'm tanked, you know? When you start seeing the comments, that also hurt, you know, it hurts, it wears on you. The articles that you read and the comments that they say about the article, it all wears on you. Some of the things that we can do is when you're starting to see the comments and see things like that, have a friend review the comments, you know, so that way you can see the ones that are good for you and you don't have to see all the negative shit. Another thing that you can do, we were talking to a community politician earlier today. And when we were having a conversation with them, they said one of the best things you can do is find something in common with the other people. Because again, people are scared of things that are different, right? So if you can find something in common, you've now humanized yourself between the two of you, and they can be closed-minded, but now they start to open up because, oh, hey, we do have that in common. We both like baseball. Oh, hey, we both, you know, whatever it is, you now have something in common, and they start to open up.
Because like one of the things that's been happening recently is that's been tearing me apart is all this rhetoric around autism.
Yeah.
And like you hear things like the HHS secretary saying that we destroy families.
Did you take your Tylenol pills
Like,
today?
Yeah.
I have a bottle every night.
It's how I stay neurodivergent. It's a little secret that we
I have a Tylenol drip that I take at night.
But I think, do people not realize how people are impacted when they make statements like that? Like, you're in a position of power that works for the government. Like, I remember a time when the government wouldn't take that kind of a stance. Even if that was true, they would at least would have the decency not to say something like an entire group of people is destroying a family.
Yeah. I had read a report one time, and I'm not super familiar on it. It's been a little while since I read it. Somewhere around JFK, when he started running for office, is when the political campaign started changing. And at before that, everybody seemed to pretty well want the same things. It wasn't about were you a Democrat or were you a Republican. It was about what change do we want to see made in America, right? But somewhere around JFK coming into it, the political tide started to shift, and maybe it wasn't JFK. Somewhere in there, though, is when it started to Reagan. Maybe it was Reagan. I don't know. Forgive me. I don't know. But the tide started to shift, and we started to see attack ads starting to come into the play. And the farther it went, it got to be more and more extreme. And especially with social media, the extreme arguments between people has skyrocketed, right? Because the social media algorithms are based on finding those things, because the arguments cause more hits. The same thing with news, right? If the news sat here and just reported about everything that was good, everyone would be bored and they would never listen to the news. They report on what's bad, right? And that's what sells news. It's the same kind of thing, but as we've gone from that point on, it's became more and more extreme. And so, yeah, they wouldn't have said in the past, oh, Tylenol is the thing, and the government would have just said, oh, okay, let's roll over with it. But now that it's getting more extreme, we're to a point that both extremes are just writing executive order and trying to overdo the last one. And so it's just starting to swing more wildly.
And it seems to have like this repeatable cycle now.
Yeah.
Where you can pretty much predict what the next thing is going to happen based on who's in the leadership position.
When Trump went into the I grew up in really conservative, right? Because that's what my family was, and I grew up on that in that same area. Though somewhere around 25, things started changing. No, 23, things started changing for me a little bit, right? But I voted for Trump the first time he went into office because, again, that's kind of my heritage, right? I voted for him the first time he went in, and he goes in there. Although I didn't like the reason a lot of the people voted for Trump. They voted for him because they liked how wild and maniacal he was, and they go, "Oh, this is going to be fun to see what happens," and I want to see what happens. And then crazy got unleashed, and I wasn't a fan of seeing that because it wasn't. I just didn't think it looked good. But then going forward, he just, we're gonna change the world. We're gonna make it better. We're gonna put in Supreme Court judges that fit him, and we're gonna add some so that way we can't overturn it again. We're gonna write executive orders to stop all these different things, and we're gonna do it to overturn Obamacare. We're gonna do it for all these other things, and people were rejoicing in this, and I was like, I don't know that I like this because we're now setting a preface that the president can just overrule anything that they want to. And then sure enough, forgive me, who came after Trump?
Biden?
It was Biden. Anyway,
Yeah.
Biden comes in and they go, "Hey, we're going to write a bunch of executive orders and overturn Trump." And I go, "Here comes the cycle, right?" And sure enough, they wrote a bunch. And now Trump came in and he wrote 100 more executive orders. And we're seeing that the number of executive orders is skyrocketing now on an exponential scale. We went from 20 orders to 30 to 50 and now Trump came in and in the first month and a half, there was some 100 and something executive orders signed, and you just heard, and he promoted it on Twitter as this great achievement. Look at how we've done this. And I go, that's not a good thing for the president to just be writing up so many executive orders, and it doesn't matter which side it is. It doesn't matter which side it is. I don't like that executive orders are just being signed right and left.
And the other piece too, and I think we're just now starting to realize, like with that big beautiful bill, just how it's impacting people who are poor. Like it's literally sucking the funding from the SNAP program.
Yes.
It's literally taking money out of the pockets of people who can't afford food to begin with, and saying, "Oh, here's $60 less a month for you. Figure it out." And it's just like so disheartening because like you hear this message of kindness and like we want to do all this stuff, but then you see what actually happens. Like, look at the actions.
Yeah.
Like, listen to the words, that's fine, but just follow the actions.
Read the bills.
And because like all of these people are under this misconception of like all of these things that these bills are doing for people, but then once the details come out, people are really surprised because nobody told me that. Well, they're not going to tell you that.
No, they hide it in a lot of it, text in there, and they hold on to things that they want to do. A couple thoughts that come into mind, right, is you can see a graphic on the internet, whatever, that says, "Oh, hey, look out for Bill HB 215, right? Because of A, B, C, and D." But then nobody goes and actually reads the bill to see what actually is happening in there. You go to read in there and you realize, oh, hey, there's racism happening here. There's misogyny happening. Whatever it is, these things are happening in the background. Well, people don't know that because all they saw was this thing saying, "Oh, fight the fires," or whatever it is, right? That's happening. The other thing is that politicians are it's a give and take game. Right now, the government is shut down, right?
Yeah.
It's been shut down for 2 weeks. The Democrats the Democrats held out on passing the bill held out because the bill was wanting to be passed to deny health care for a lot of people. It was going to affect a lot of people, but especially including the minority communities, and that would include the trans community in there, right? These were things that were being specifically targeted in this bill, and the Democrats said, no, we're not going to. We're going to go ahead and put our foot down. We're not going to do it. Well, okay, the government's been furloughed over this. Fast forward, the Republicans want to go pass their Department of Defense bill. So they go in to go do this, and the Democrats have held out on it, and everyone's sitting here whatever on the Democrats for holding out on this, but it's a give and take game, right? I think what's going to end up happening is that the Democrats and Republicans are going to come together and they're going to say, okay, we'll pass your Department of Defense bill, but you have to pass our medical provisions in this, and that's how I think it's going to end up ending.
Because I still don't understand why we have such a hesitation to go towards like universal health care.
There's the argument of how much is it going to cost?
How much is it costing us already? You know, I pay what, $6,000 a year out of pocket for my health care. Right. And I work for a really good employer who gives me really good insurance.
Right.
So I'm already paying $6,000 a year.
Yeah.
Because I have medical needs.
Right.
So this idea of, it's going to cost you, I doubt it's going to cost us $6,000 a person for everybody in this country.
I mean, there's the argument to say that what in here isn't Christ-like. A lot of the people that are fighting this are Republicans and on the Christian side of the scale, right?
Yeah.
So if we want to come in here, I if you don't mind, let me just grab a post that I wrote.
No, please.
Because I thought, I was thinking about this very thing, and it came to me, and I go, this is one of the big problems. A lot of the fight against all these communities is from the Christian community.
Which makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
Because if you're following the lessons of Christ, the meek shall inherit the earth.
Right.
Like,
well, so I put here, for behold, I am Republican Jesus. And then Jesus said to the sick, you better have insurance. And Jesus said to the stranger, are you here legally? Jesus said unto the hungry, my taxes better not be paying for those loaves and fishes. And Jesus said unto the poor, this is your own fault. And Jesus said to the gays, marriage is sacred, unless it's my third. Jesus said, blessed are the gatekeepers, for they know better than thou. Jesus said, take up thy cross and wait in the hallway, for they shall not enter the bathroom. And Jesus said to the trans people, change not thy garments nor thy body, for I delight in conformity more than love.
Yeah.
You know, it's hypocritical on the communities to sit here and tell everybody that they are Christian, that they have this belief in God, and then turn around and deny people rights.
Especially like basic human rights.
Yeah.
Like healthcare should be a basic
healthcare,
human
housing.
Right. Like the fact that some person can tell you whether or not you can have a surgery is ludicrous to me. Yeah. The fact that somebody that doesn't know you or anything about your story can just deny and delay your health care for an arbitrary reason is just ludicrous to me.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why people push back.
Food, shelter, healthcare are the three big needs. Everybody should have access to those. They're just human needs. We're a first world country, or supposed to be a first world country here. Why are we having citizens that don't have these? Why do we have minority communities that are still being attacked? These things shouldn't be happening. If we're air quotes here, the greatest country on the earth, why do we have this still happening?
Because the priority is the oligarchy and the rich class now.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of pushback because I'm not anti-capitalist.
Right.
I'm anti-monopolist.
That's fair.
And I think if we could develop a capitalist society where all of your profits that you make goes back to your workers, why can't we have something like that?
Doesn't Winco do something real similar to that?
Kinda, but they still take advantage of their workers in other ways. Okay. So they pay crap wages.
Yeah.
They most of the employees are part-timers, so they don't have to pay their health care or pay for all of the things that have
mark them right at 29 hours.
But then they claim that they're person owned because you own a percentage of the share in the company that you work for.
I think Costco does the same thing.
Yeah, it's more I liken it to the sharecroppers of the day, where you work here and then you have to pay me rent and I pick it out of your paycheck, which is illegal.
Yeah.
But there are still companies that kind of do that.
Yeah.
And so I think the moment we went to a shareholder idea to where all of our efforts go towards appeasing shareholders, we lost that connection with customers and we lost that connection with the employees that work for you.
So how do we fix that?
I don't know. We got to break up some monopolies.
I think it's going to end up coming down to grassroots efforts, right?
Yeah.
It's going to start again with the younger generations turning around saying, hey, I don't think this is right, and let's go ahead and start changing it, right?
It's a lot harder to lay off 300 workers if you're capped at 350 workers. And if the idea is the only way we can grow is to ruin the lives of thousands of workers, then maybe we don't grow this year. Maybe we stay the same.
That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, but we are in this ever sort of like we need growth over growth over growth, and that's not sustainable.
I need growth.
Right?
I could use growth.
But it's the people at the bottom that suffer because like we've allowed these entities to get so big that so what if they lay off 5,000 people? They're not attached to them. They don't know them. They don't lose sleep at night because they're not the ones that have to go in front of them and say, I'm sorry, but you have to tell your spouse or your loved one that you no longer have a job because I'm greedy.
So one of the things when you're going to go work for an employer, you can everybody has no problem going up to the boss and just saying, hey, there's a problem, here's a problem, here's a problem. They just go whine to the boss, right?
Yeah.
The people that move ahead faster and make differences are the ones that go, hey, there's a problem, and here's the ways I see that we can fix it. So, I mean, we can all sit in here and have the conversations and go, oh, the fucking Republicans, oh, the damn Democrats, you know, and we can complain about everybody all day, but where do we make the change? And so I think we start off back at the grassroots efforts again, right?
Yeah.
Let's have younger people, especially younger people, you know, let's get out, let's get the older generations that are career politicians. Let's kind of get some of these guys out of office. Let's start bringing in younger people because younger people have a fresh eye and a fresh perspective on things. So let's shake it up a little bit. Let's bring in younger people. Let's get people from the minority communities, whether they're trans, black, Latino, whatever it is, the Asian, you know, women. Let's get them coming into these other areas. Let's get them into politics. Let's get them into local municipalities, showing, you know, how to make change. And let's start change there. As we start making change there, these people will grow into politicians at state and national levels. So let's start with that. Let's start with talking to your neighbor, getting to know them. Let's destigmatize all of these things. You know, the community politician that we spoke to earlier, they campaigned essentially to become on the library board, right? For their county. So they went to go do it, but they said to get their name on the list, they had to go sign up for, you know, they had to sign up 50 people on the petition. They signed up 60. I made the joke, did you even know 50 people? And they go, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
And that really surprised me, but they said, no, they didn't. So they had to go door to door and just start talking to people. And, hey, I am me. Hey, but I am me. Come talk. And as they got going, people got to know, hey, by the way, it is a trans person, but look, they're really not that bad. They're really not that different. And so things like this, you know, being out there, being visible in the public, it's more than going down to the ICE raid and screaming back and forth between the MAGA community and the other side of it, right?
Yeah, because that gets us nowhere.
It doesn't. So let's come find ways that we can make change. Let's go talk to our community boards. Let's go run for offices. Let's go, in some cases, let's talk to the politicians and lawyers and let's start filing lawsuits against these places to stop the actions that are happening. Let's, you know, whatever it is that we need to do to make these changes, let's find the ways to make the changes rather than sit and bitch about it on Facebook.
I really appreciate that. And I have two things that come to mind. One, that is an amazing idea that I can't take credit for because somebody else had it. And the other one is kind of in jest, but at the same time, I really wish it would happen.
Yeah.
One is, I had a gentleman named Chris on my podcast, and he said, instead of affordable housing, do affordable condos where the city comes in and they buy half. And if you meet a certain income requirement, you buy half. So now instead of $300,000 to get into a condo, it costs you $150,000 to get into a condo.
But who owns it?
The city owns half, and the person that owns the other half. And then when they sell it back to the city at whatever the market value is. So then they can cash out their equity and get into a house or a condo of their own. And then it opens up that condo back to another person.
Interesting idea.
I don't know about feasibility, but it's an interesting idea.
Because then you have to think about it. Who's going to pay for maintenance expenses? You know, who's going to you're not really owning anything. You're turning it back over to the government. So I don't know. There'd be a lot of things to get over. But then now's where we bring back the original conversation of how do we make those changes? Because it doesn't mean that it's a bad idea. There may be some roadblocks, so let's find our way past these roadblocks and make things happen.
And the other thing that I would love to see is I would love to see every politician have to be on OHP. If you're a politician, you have to have the same insurance as the poorest people of your community.
And let your voters determine your pay, because you're supposed to be serving them.
Yeah.
So let them determine what you get paid rather than you getting to determine what you get paid. If you change something like that, and don't get me wrong, it would never pass in Congress. But
it would never.
But then you have the ability to turn around and look at it and go, well, there are amendments that can be made and put on voter registration. You just have to have enough votes to sign up for it.
Yeah.
If the general population determined the pricing of whatever politicians get paid, politicians are going to be much more incentivized to treat their community and to serve their community.
And if we can find a way to scale back some salary if they're not living up to their potential. I mean, so if voters, like when you're reelected, like have that, like, are you making the right amount? We can give you a bump if you're doing well. But if the voters think, that may overcomplicate things.
Well, I mean, sales positions may have like a base pay that they get, and then as they meet sales goals, they get bonuses added. So maybe there's a way to look at it into there. Hey, we have these options, but now you can get bonuses by 80% voter approval rating or whatever, instead of messing around with these, we got a 34% approval rating, let's get them up into the 80%. Hey, let's make you happy because I'm supposed to be serving you.
And that's the way to incentivize them to serve the people instead of the corporations.
Money runs the world.
Yeah. And the individual donor is at a distinct disadvantage in our society.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange. But so to round out our conversation, though, because we just went all over the place.
We did go all over the place.
Which happens on my podcast from time to time, I gotta say.
That's the Tylenol kicking in.
Oh, I love that.
I may have a shot or two in my bag over here.
Get me nice and neurospicy. But if we're talking about like community support and community involvement, like what would you like people to understand or like take away from our conversation today?
If people want to make change, they have to be the start. They have to be the start. It starts by being out in the public and not hiding behind their computer screen, but going out and talking to people, real people, getting to know people that are different than each other, going and starting to file for running office. Or if you're scared to run for office, go volunteer for somebody else that's willing to run for office, to just kind of get your feet wet with it or support a movement that you agree with. Just getting outside of your comfort bubble and then being the one to push for change rather than hoping somebody else does it. That, I think, would make the biggest difference.
I really appreciate that so much.
Yeah. When I came out, I needed so much information. I needed information about the community because I knew nothing about what it meant to be trans. I just knew what I felt. That's all I knew. I didn't know, the day I separated from my ex, I called up somebody that had been kind of helping me with little makeup tips and stuff like that. And I called her up and I was like, "Hey, I'm separated. Now what?" And she goes, "Now you live the rest of your life." I hadn't thought about that. I wanted to know how to be trans. How do you be trans? There was no information about that. There's nothing that explained that. How do you, and how do you deal with religion and the fallout from religion? Because, I was working for the Mormon church at the time. I was working on temples, building and remodeling temples. That was what my job was as an electrician, So when I came out, there was no more working on temples. There was no more being around the church. There was no more going to church. There was no, in the LDS religion, church is very much a community. So when you left, Your community also left. Your family left. All of these things left, and you're left going, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to be this. I don't know the information I need to have, and none of it exists, right? So I can sit here and we can bitch about it and say, hey, this doesn't exist. The trans life is so hard. Oh my God, what am I doing, right? And to some extent, I did, right? Things fell apart on me pretty severely over the last year. And I lost bottom surgery. I was supposed to have bottom surgery. I was signed up for it. 60 days away from bottom surgery, I got fired from my job. I lost insurance, and there went bottom surgery, and I was devastated. I had worked for 3 years to get this signed up, to get the date, to be ready for it. I'd worked for 3 years on this, and then it was just gone like that. And I was devastated, and I ended up in the hospital after that. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital, and while I was in there, I listened to a podcast about finding your purpose and finding joy in life. And when I listened to it, by the end of it, I was like, I need to start this podcast because other people need this. I needed it. It didn't exist, and there's other people that need it too. So I can sit here bitch and moan about it, or I can go make a change. So I went and created this podcast. And that's the thing people have to do. They can be upset about the politics. They can be upset about family relations. It doesn't change until you change it.
And anybody that's complaining about the political system who doesn't vote, reconsider getting your right to vote.
I mean,
yeah,
change starts with you. Change
starts with you. Daphne, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'll end our podcast the way I always end our podcast, folks. Be kind. We live on the same planet. We share the same air, and this world would be just a better place if we treated everybody with dignity and respect.
Can I throw out a tag for my podcast?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the podcast is called Transplaining. It's like mansplaining, but transplaining. See how I transplained that? Transplaining is the podcast. You can find us online at transplainingpodcast.com if you want to come on the podcast and share your story or whatever it is. Send me an email, Daphne at transplainingpodcast.com. We are also on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm not on Twitter.
I don't blame you there.
Yeah, but we're also on Spotify. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, all of these other areas. We're on all the socials, basically. So you can find us on any of these. We have 14 episodes. I just recorded another 2. I'm double booked every weekend for the rest of the year. We have a lot of really good content coming out. So if people want to come, check it out, like, share, subscribe, all of that kind of stuff, we can use all the help. We're being listened to in 11 countries, and if you saw the messages that are coming in, we're quite literally changing the world. And so I would just invite people to come be part of that change.
And I can attest to how amazing your podcast is.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I love the way you approach it and the way that you have real affirming conversations where you include every angle.
Yeah.
You're very thorough, and you're very logical, and you're very emotional. And if you haven't checked out Transplaining, you got to check it out.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Daphne, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun having you on for the second time.
Right?
Yeah, appreciate it.